Hello, my friend. My name is Stephen Hewer. I'm a nutritionist. I've been in private nutritional practice for 35 years now. And in that journey to try and get the ultimate ideal health back into my body that was taken from me back when I was 15 from mercury poisoning and a few other things along the way, I've experimented with diet probably more than the average person. I did 4 years of veganism, cooked veganism from age 16 to 20. I stayed mostly plant-based. I tried a little bit of raw plant-based diet with following like the Hippocrates Health Institute, the Optimum Health Institute in Lemon Grove, California. I've done, after I did that, then I did back to the cooked food diet of animal proteins. From that point forward, I always followed what would be called nowadays the Weston A. Price type diet. And so I did the cooked food animal protein diet up until about 1996. And I learned about the primal diet at that point where you eat raw meats. And because I had chronic fatigue syndrome issues, I decided to try the diet. And I did improve my energy. So I stayed on that diet from then until now, or until recently, most of the time, 90% of the time. And I cook my meat sometimes. And then I always experienced the consequences of inflammation and not feeling as good, even depression, when I ate my meats cooked. And all along the way, the people that had worked out the raw living foods vegetarian diet, and I mean made it work for themselves, always radiated the most youthful skin, the most brightest sparkle of light in their eyes, and basically emanated the godly energy that the human body is capable of emanating when we're in harmony with, I'd say, God, the creator of all that is. So I always seek to get back to a raw living foods vegetarian diet, which means that you have to take nuts and seeds, because if you look at all the different plant foods, grains, if you've ever tried to soak them, germinate them, and turn them into a cracker or eat them raw, they don't taste good. They're designed for birds, because birds are designed to eat grains and seeds with their particular digestive anatomy. I think it's their gizzard, where they grind seeds up with rocks, and they can digest those kinds of foods. But humans can't, and I've experimented with sprouted grains and eating them raw, like wheat or oats, and there's chemicals in them that they produce to prevent a predator from eating them, because when I eat them, my vision just starts to diminish. I feel like I'm going blind. So grains are not part of a healthy diet unless you cook them to death and then they're dead. They don't transfer the life force to your body. They're just starches that your body breaks down into sugars. And then if you look at the vegetable kingdom in terms of the greens, they don't provide enough protein for the body. And if you juice them and concentrate them to try and get all that phytochemical nutrition, you're concentrating all the oxalates. So oxalates are calcium crystal structures that under a microscope, which I'll show you here. You can look at this since I'll splice this in. That if you don't have the proper mucus lining to protect your gut, your actual intestinal lining, from the effect of those oxalates and or the appropriate levels of certain probiotics that digest oxalates, then you will suffer those oxalates piercing through your intestinal wall, causing microscopic holes, which then leads to you absorbing your food in its undigested state. So you've absorbed a little piece of your milk or a little piece of your cheese or a little piece of your egg or your steak or your meat or whatever, and the proteins, you absorb them in their undigested state, and then the body's saying this is a foreign substance. It should have entered the body as an amino acid, and because of the holes in the gut, you are absorbing these proteins in their whole state. So that looks foreign to the immune system. It wants to attack it. So it produces all these inflammatory chemicals, cytokines, to deal with this and try to eliminate it. And the consequences of this leads to autoimmune disease, whether that's your immune system attacking your joints or your thyroid or your skin or whatever. Some form of attack of your own tissues occurs as a result of having food absorbed in its whole protein structure state through your intestinal tract into the bloodstream. Some people, when they're young and enthusiastic about living on the most ideal diet, achieving the highest state of consciousness, and I did this myself, try to be a fruitarian. Lots of fruit in the diet, and various people have had temporary success because when you're young, your body is producing the most highest levels of growth hormone testosterone, insulin, estrogen, thyroid hormone, all of which are anabolic hormones that make you maintain muscle mass and make you utilize whatever amino acids that are in your diet more efficiently. But if you stay on a fruitarian diet, what happens is that you will eventually experience such a deficiency, and this is documented by Melvin Page. He's a dentist from back in the 50s and 60s, where he did blood test studies on people to determine what was causing the creation of cavities. And what he found was that when a person consumed 4 or more ounces of sugar, the refined version of that, like white sugar, that within 2.5 hours they would experience such a drop in their blood mineral levels, all the minerals would decline to below physiological homeostasis norms. And in particular, because calcium and phosphorus are responsible for the majority of your bone structure and your dental structure, he saw that those 2 minerals declined to below levels needed to maintain homeostasis for your skeleton and your teeth. And so that would lead to the body drawing the minerals out of the teeth, out of the jawbone, out of the bones, and result in cavity formation. And of course, fruits are deficient in amino acids, so you'll have a blood sugar issue, you'll lose minerals on that kind of a diet, and you will become emaciated eventually at some point because of the deficiency of amino acids. So then what's left in terms of all the plant foods that you could partake of and ingest to maintain your physical body's health? What's the next thing you could choose from? Well, it would be nuts. Nuts and certain seeds. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, those are kind of like nuts themselves in that their structure has got proteins and oils in it. So in order to make nuts digestible, they have to undergo several different transmutations. And so the first one is soaking them. So here I'm showing you today in front of my kitchen sink that I've soaked some macadamia nuts overnight. I'm going to now just pour off the water. And I have a particularly unique water faucet system where under the sink I've got a pipe called the Hexahedron 999, and that was invented by a man named XLX. His company's out of Canada. He passed away, but the company continues on, and these pipes are unique in that they are designed to vortex the water as it goes into the pipe, so it starts to spin. And there's also on the outside of the pipe, with a sleeve on the outside of the pipe to hold it in, gold dust and quartz crystal, crushed quartz crystal powder. So by some sort of inspiration that XLX had to conceive this idea of this pipe ends up concentrating. It's like it opens up a dimensional door to a higher dimension where the energy of life that comes from the omnipresent God force is called the biophoton. And the biophoton, I'll show you right now so you can see it. Okay, so you saw it. So it's a tiny Star of David of light. There's the larger version, which is the regenerative biophoton. There is the slightly smaller version, which is a sustaining biophoton. And then there's the smaller version still, which is the degenerative biophoton. So the biophoton appears to be playing a critical role in the animation of our physical bodies and the level of life force that we have. So doing this germination process with a Hexahedron 999 biophoton enriched water to soak into your nuts gives the nuts more of these regenerative biophotons to start their germination process. And what's inside of nuts and any plant food in general, and of course meats too, it's just that the cycle of the particular protein I'm going to talk about is more in a degenerative phase when it's in meats than it is in plant foods that are germinating. And that protein is called the endobiont. A man named Gunther Enderlein was a professor scientist in Germany who spent 60 years of his life examining blood in a dark field method. I did that too for 10 years of my life. And what he showed is that there's these little tiny motile white particles that are shimmering around in the blood itself that are responsible for maintaining the life of the body when the terrain conditions of the body are healthy. So those terrain conditions are defined as an alkaline pH, because pH controls oxygen levels, and pH potential for hydrogen. You can be too alkaline and you can be too acidic. So you have to be in the middle, and the best way to test yourself is with your saliva in the morning. Saliva reflects the body pH. Urine reflects what's being excreted. So the urine isn't as important because it can vary widely, and normally, it should be acidic at all times, the urine. And some people claim otherwise, but that's just not true. When your saliva pH is 7.5, you want to measure it in the morning between 5 and 7 a.m. Before you eat, drink, or brush your teeth. Spit on some pH paper, and then you can see the color change. And then there's a color chart to compare it to. This pH should be 7.5. Carl Reich was a doctor that had a nutritional practice from 1950 to the 1970s, and he was able to prove in his clients that their diseases were occurring when their body pH, their saliva pH was 6.6 or lower. If it was below 7, they were dealing with some kind of a health issue, and that when he would change their diet and give them certain supplements, the pH of their saliva would incline to 7.5. And when it got to 7.5, their morning saliva pH, they would end up having significant improvements in their health, or their health condition would go away completely. So when you have these proper pH levels in your body, then your oxygen levels are optimized in your tissues, and the endobiont, this tiny protein, maintains a functionally health-giving state, helping to animate cells and I guess signal cells with hormone production. When our terrain conditions change so that the pH becomes acidic and your oxygen levels then decline, then that's an anaerobic environment. And this can be created by toxins in your body as well. So unfortunately, we live in a time where demon-possessed or misguided humans are seeking to kill off millions and billions of people on the planet. And the controllers of this planet, you could say, are spraying these chemtrails in the sky all the time around the world. They're filled with aluminum, barium, strontium, thorium. You can look at the patents online. And so our bodies are full of these toxic elements, as well as what we've been exposed to from environmental conditions that are man-made, created, whether it's car exhaust, cadmium, or from tires, cadmium, and then previous mercury exposure from mercury dental fillings. That's the big one that most people don't really understand. They think, oh, I had those removed a long time ago, but the mercury that came off your teeth while you had the fillings came off as a vapor that you inhaled, came off as a particulate that you swallowed, and in most instances, if you haven't done some kind of a thorough mercury detoxification, then those mercury atoms are still stuck in your tissues, and wherever they deposit, they injure the cell, and the cell no longer creates energy optimally. And the cell, instead of making 32 to 36 units of energy, ATP, for every molecule of glucose, produces far less than that, and produces a lot more lactic acid. So that lactic acid, in turn, lowers the pH of the cellular environment, and then that lowered oxygen level results. And then these endobionts are spores, and they go from their spore stage into their fungal stage. So you get candida growing in your body, and you get mucorracemoses growing in your body, and aspergillus, and various other molds, because the body's filled with a variety of spores that you can call the endobiont or symprotid or different names. Microzyma was what Antoine Béchamp called it, and Gaston Naessens called it the somatid. So various researchers have called it by different names. But nonetheless, creating conditions in your body for those endobionts to basically contribute to your longevity, your youthfulness, your health, your positive mood is the goal. And what I've found is that when I soak nuts and I've started the germination process, these endobionts, like I said, are in everything. They're in the nuts. And so they're awakened from their dormant state into a state that's going to contribute to the cell division process of the nut to cause it to germinate into a tree or a sunflower plant or a pumpkin plant, whatever nut or seed you're using. And so when you then blend up these soaked nuts with pure water, I use distilled water, which is the best water to drink, and the best water to keep your body hydrated and cleansed and all that. And with probiotics, certain specific probiotics. So now I'm going to switch to showing you how I do that. So over the years, I've used different blenders. Vitamix, I think, was the first one. Then Blendtec. Blendtec was better. It actually blended things better. You didn't need to use any kind of a plunger device to move the contents around, so they'd the blades would catch everything. That's really inconvenient. And then I upgraded to this. So this is called the DynaPro by TriBest. And this has a vacuum seal blender, which means that once I put everything in here and I'm ready to blend it, I put this lid on and I vacuum out the air so that there's less oxidation of what you're going to blend. So, macadamia nuts. So the various probiotics that you want to use. So here's one called Therabiotic. So Therabiotic's got Lactobacillus plantarum. So species specificity makes all the difference. So you want the specific species of L. reuteri, the specific species of L. gasseri, the specific species of Bacillus coagulans, and others, because these ones produce bacteriocins. So in an effort to restore gut health, you want microorganisms that can live in your gut that produce chemicals called bacteriocins, which kill off fungal overgrowth and pathogenic bacterial overgrowth. Part of being able to do this kind of a diet of pre-digested cultured nuts and seeds, so that they're nut and seed yogurts, is that you have to have healed your digestive tract or be doing things to be in the process of healing it, which means getting rid of the excess fungus overgrowth, the excess bacterial overgrowth called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth called SIBO, and restoring the mucus lining. For years when I was dealing with mercury poisoning, chronic constipation, I had to do colonics on a regular basis. So I was irrigating out of my large bowel fecal matter with water. And then later on I did Colimas, which is a homemade version of a colonic. And all along the way, every year I would do a 7 to 10 day intestinal cleanse where you're taking clay, psyllium, and herbs, laxative herbs, to clean out your intestines and get rid of this thing called mucoid plaque. And then also part of my diet was excess in sugar. Even when I converted over from refined white sugar to healthy sugars, fruits, I converted over to using honey, sucanant, maple syrup. And these sugars basically feed the overgrowth of the fungus in the body. The spores naturally in your body, candida spores, grow into fungus because that's the consequence of eating too much sugar, is that your body has to compensate and do something to metabolize it, so these fungi grow in excess and produce toxic metabolites. They produce alcohol and they produce toxins that are just called fungal toxins or mycotoxins. This stuff erodes away at the intestinal mucus lining. So you're supposed to have a protective 1 millimeter thick mucus layer in your small intestines and a 2 millimeter thick layer in your large intestines. And so I could pretty much guarantee that I've eroded mine away throughout my small and large intestine from all that I've done, thinking I was doing good for myself. Okay, so the particular probiotics that we're finding in the product called Ther-Biotic. This product contains Lactobacillus plantarum, Bifidobacterium lactis, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus paracasei, Lactobacillus L. reuteri, and Lactobacillus bifidum. Specific strains of them, because there can be a variety of strains, and these are specific strains that have proven to be more therapeutic in their bacteriocin production. So I'm going to put 3 capsules of this, open up the capsules of powder into my nut puree. Then the other one is by Dr. Mercola. It's called Biothin in terms of a product name, but in terms of the actual bacteria, it's Bacillus gasseri, and it's a specific strain. Like all these are, the numbers and letters after them. So the letters and numbers after this one is Lactobacillus gasseri BNR17. Again, this is one that will produce a variety of bacteriocins that will inhabit the small intestines. L. reuteri is the key one to inhabit the entire GI tract, to get rid of the fungal overgrowth, the pathogenic bacterial overgrowth, to help you produce, and L. reuteri helps you produce oxytocin. Signals your body to produce oxytocin. What's oxytocin? That is a hormone responsible for your mood, how much love and empathy you feel for others, how peaceful and contented you are inside yourself emotionally. It's also responsible for doubling the size of your muscle cells. I've seen the studies done by or quoted by Dr. William Davis on this, and I've seen the actual photographs of the actual muscle cells before and after when they're exposed to oxytocin. So first they do the animal studies with just injections of oxytocin before they show you the muscle cell fibers and the muscle cell size, and then after they give them injections of oxytocin, the muscle cells have doubled in size. And so for any of you out there who want to burn calories, the way you burn calories is by having plenty of muscle. So you want to always do things that are conducive to maintaining muscle mass, and then that causes you to burn calories and get rid of any excess body fat. Then they did the study again where they gave the animals actual just L. reuteri bacteria, and their intestinal tract and the signaling process signaled their bodies to produce more oxytocin, and again the muscle cells doubled in size just from the effect of the L. reuteri, the specific strain of L. reuteri that is specific to causing this oxytocin production. So then not only do you have more muscle, but you actually lose fat, and it supports regaining your insulin sensitivity. So our microbiomes are really the most important factor in maintaining healthy fat to muscle ratios. And like I said, L. reuteri, which is in the Therabiotic, is supposed to colonize the entire digestive tract, mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. Whereas the L-Gaceri, it colonizes the small intestines, which helps you get rid of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Okay, so the third one I don't carry. I carry these two, but this one is not available to me at this point. But it's called Digestive Advantage. You can get this online through Walmart, through Amazon, variety of places. And what's unique about this is that it contains Bacillus coagulans and then 6086. It's got a couple of different enzymes for digestion as well, so it's a digestive aid, protease, amylase, and lipase. But the main purpose of taking this product and opening up, again, 3 or so of these capsules into this nut puree is to culture and grow this specific strain of Bacillus coagulans. Bacillus coagulans digests proteins into amino acids. So that's going to help digest all the proteins in this nut puree into amino acids, so that you actually get much more absorption of amino acids than you would if you were relying upon eating the nut in its non-predigested state, non-cultured state. Why is that important? Because nuts are a cellulose-rich protein fat food, and the human gut does not produce cellulase to break down cellulose. So some form of predigestion is really required or mandatory. If you're trying to be on a diet where you feel happy to be alive, you get up every morning well rested, you look young, your face looks good, all these things, and you've got energy, then you have to be ingesting these living foods that are full of the biophotons, the regenerative biophotons, and full of the endobionts that have been animated to cause this cedar nut to grow into its plant state. And those are transferred, both the biophoton and the endobiont in its animated state to give life to the plant is transferred to your body to give life to your cells, both the biophotons and the endobiont. So predigestion of your nuts is key. All right, so this is the Bacillus coagulans that's going to predigest the protein in the nut. This is the Bacillus gaceri. So we can colonize the small intestines to get rid of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is a probiotic that produces the bacteriocins that kill off the excess fungus and the excess pathogenic bacteria in the small intestines. And this is the Therabiotic that's got a spectrum of organisms with a specific strain of L. reuteri that will help you produce the oxytocin necessary to lose fat, help restore insulin sensitivity, double the muscle size of your cells, improve your mood so that you end up having empathy, compassion, and feelings of love, and basically be thrivingly healthy. So I'm going to take one more of the Digestive Advantage. So it'll be 4 capsules of Digestive Advantage, 4 capsules of Therabiotic, and 3 capsules of the Bacillus gaceri. Okay, so the next part of this is taking 1 young meat coconut or 2. I get these at the Asian market here locally. That's the best place to find them. Some health food stores carry them. They cover them up with cellophane so that they stay moist. They don't lose their moisture. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can actually open this up and get the liquid out. And the way that I like to do it is to use a cleaver knife and to go whack this 4 times or so at the top apex point, but hard enough and deep enough that I get through this husk, I penetrate the shell, and I can pull it off as a cap and then pour out the water. However, using a cleaver knife with your hand here takes some skill, some sense of control, and so it's not the safest thing to do for everybody. So the safest thing to do is to take a drill and to drill one hole or two holes preferably, into and through the shell, and then pour that out into the blender, because you're going to use this water and the jelly meat that's in the coconut to blend with your nuts. It helps to give some of the sugar necessary from the coconut water to feed the growth of the bacteria. It improves the flavor of your nut yogurt. That's creamier, and probably helps it be more of a complete protein. So here's the way it looks that I do it. So there you go. Now you have that water you want to pour into your blender to blend it up with this and a little bit of actual water from regular pure water. Okay. There's your coconut water. Okay, so this next step is going to take a little bit of force. We want to, you can chop this open with a cleaver knife, hitting it multiple times. Typically you'll put the coconut face down so that the hole acts as the pivotal point or fulcrum to hold it in place, and you whack it, or you go boom, back several times. But I don't like that way because it requires too much hitting for me. Instead, I use a machete, and I just come down on it really hard. I try and hit it right in the middle. Sometimes I don't get it exact, and I have to hit it a couple times. Okay, so here's what it looks like when I do it. Okay, one whack, that's almost 50-50 break, pretty good. Okay, this little tool, there's various companies that sell these. This one I got from Vitamix, but basically it helps you to really easily go along the lining of where the young meat coconut connects to the actual shell, and if you do that thoroughly and then you cut off the little bits of shell that came off when you did that, this is the easiest way to get the coconut meat out. Okay, that's the young meat coconut. So you get off any pieces of coconut shell that you can find that you didn't get off before, so that these hard chunks don't become a part of your yogurt. Then you drop it in, and you want to add a little bit of water so it'll blend smooth, not too liquidy, but smooth. And then I'll blend that. Okay, put the lid on. Then you put the vacuum suction out, and this sucks the air out. I run this for 30 seconds, sometimes 45 seconds. And then I hit run for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I blend it. Hopefully you can see that. It's perfect. And one of the things about blending your nut yogurt that I just now am realizing is that those probiotics that I put in there got damaged. Some of them got killed by being blended by those blades hitting them at high force. And so the way you actually want to culture a nut yogurt correctly is to put those probiotics in after you've blended this. After you've pureed your nuts into a pourable puree, then you could put those several capsules opened up of probiotics into your nut puree, and then just turn it on for a second to blend it, to mix it, but not run it more than 1 or 2 pulses. That's the way to do it. Okay, so here's the macadamia nut puree with the coconut meat, the coconut water, a little bit extra water, the probiotics, and I'm ready to pour it into my Pyrex dish for culturing. But I want to say before I do that when you're trying to restore your gut health back to an ideal state, you have to remember that most people have used antibiotics 1 or more times in their life, and that causes the destruction or the death of the L. reuteri and the L. gasseri and a variety, dozens, hundreds, if not thousands. There's supposed to be approximately 8,000 different organisms living in the digestive tract. So when you take antibiotics, you wipe out a bunch of them, and they don't grow back unless you reseed them into the system. So if you think about how the role they play, not only do they produce vitamins and antibiotics, these beneficial bacteria, they produce vitamins, they produce antibiotics, they're signaling your body, or they're producing chemicals for your body to actually influence your mood, your thinking, your exuberance for life or lack of it. When I did a strong herbal antibiotic, and in the thought that I needed to do that to kill off fungus and pathogenic bacteria in my gut, my body type, this isn't true for everybody, but my body type experienced the die-off to such a degree that it caused a few days of constipation, and it made me depressed. So in other words, they grew back, so I feel much better now, but temporarily I got depressed, and I hadn't ever experienced that degree of depression. So I experienced firsthand that these microorganisms, so when you take herbal antibiotics, they're not only killing off the pathogenic fungi, the pathogenic bacteria, but they're also killing off the good bacteria that are producing these vitamins, these signaling molecules, or these direct hormone molecules that make you have a good mood. So having said all that, in order to regain ideal health, ideal fat to muscle ratios, you have to have all the strains that are found in the human digestive tract be reseeded into your gut. Now, these first ones that I introduced you to are designed to do some of that, reseed your gut with some of them, but also to produce those bacteriocins that kill off the excess fungus and kill off the excess pathogenic bacteria. And when you do that, you can do this for like 4 weeks to re-establish gut health. And you could do this, of course, if you're trying to do this, you've got good gut health to a certain degree, but you just want to, you don't need to do the nut yogurt. You could use milk, pasteurized goat's milk or pasteurized cow's milk if you tolerate those. If you don't, you can use coconut milk to make a yogurt, whatever. But I'm talking about using these same probiotics to fix the gut, but also to make the culture you're creating a nut yogurt so that you're getting your amino acids, fatty acids in a living state that if you do it for a little while, you might be surprised how much better you feel, how much younger your body and face looks. It's quite remarkable. Not only that, when you do it this way, the fiber from the nuts and the beneficial bacteria and their combined synergistic action cause your bowels to work better than they've worked in years. You have really long, easy eliminations, sausage-shaped stools. But this is only a small spectrum of organisms. It's not anywhere near close to the 8,000 organisms that are supposed to live in the GI tract. But ProGert overcomes that. So you first do this for 4 weeks, say. Then after that, you use ProGert as your inoculant. The reason is that ProGert is all human strains that will colonize the digestive tract. So this company has derived their probiotic strains from healthy infant stool, breastfed stool. So you end up having all the strains of human probiotics in this product. Now, I don't know what concentrations of the bacteriocin producing probiotics are in this. They should all be there. But in an effort to be 100% effective at healing the gut from any condition, I start with those ones that I just introduced you to, and then I followed up with this. And so this works wonders for your GI tract health, and you want to make it into a yogurt either with pasteurized milk or with the nut puree that I've just shown you. You could also use coconut milk is the culture medium. But this is something you want to always, after you've sort of fixed up the gut microbiome with these guys, you want to always reseed your gut with these cultured yogurts with ProGert, because it's a multi-species and they are human strains, which means they colonize the gut. Most probiotics pass through the GI tract and they don't set up shop, grow and multiply, and continue to protect you. This one does. Okay, so I pour it out. Okay, this is my macadamia nut, coconut water, coconut meat puree that's going to be cultured into a yogurt. You could use a mason jar or whatever jar works for you. The lid on, put the lid on, and then I put it in the oven with the oven light on. So this is an old oven. I don't know if new ovens don't have incandescent lights, but it has to be an incandescent light. Just turn the oven light on. You don't actually turn the oven on. I then put a magazine in here so that some hot air can escape. If I left the door completely closed, it gets too hot. So you don't want it to go above 104 degrees. It'll kill the beneficial bacteria. You want it to be about 100 to 104 degrees, so you put either a paperback book or a magazine in here to let some of the hot air escape, and I've measured the temperature with the thermometer, and mine oven is 100 degrees, so mine works perfectly. But make sure you have the proper temperature. Don't assume. Use a yogurt maker, use a dehydrator. Make sure that you can control the setting, or that you know the preset settings is either 100 to 104 degrees, not higher. Now I'm going to leave this here for 24 hours, and if you want the strongest effect in terms of the bacteria, you let it go 36 hours. 36 hours is the ideal time in which the bacteria have multiplied to their highest numbers in the billions. Half a cup is 300 billion colony-forming units, and that's the most therapeutic yogurt. It'll also be more acidic, but it's more therapeutic for you. And so this, I'm going to go 24 hours and then take it out tomorrow and put it in the refrigerator and start using it as something that I eat in my diet. There's two ways that I eat this. One is savory, where I'll add some coconut aminos, some sulfur salt, or some onion salt, garlic salt, whatever particular seasonings of herbs I want, and salt, and I eat it plain, or I eat it with cut up celery, cabbage, different vegetables, sort of a salad. The other way is with fruit, where I'll cut up an orange, cut up some dates, I'll mix it up. I might salt the nut yogurt first, but then I'll have those sweet fruits in there and I'll eat it that way. But if you can incorporate this nut yogurt thing into your diet in a significant way, I think you'll feel a phenomenal improvement in how you function. You know, if you could do it every day, if your body and GI tract got enough amino acids and fatty acids, enough actual nourishment from nuts, soaked and sprouted nuts and seeds, and cultured as your protein fatty acid source, then I think you would experience a youthening effect to your body. I've seen other people's bodies, faces get younger over the weeks and months and years of doing this kind of a diet. It's just most people don't get the protein needs met, so they'll go back to eating some cooked fish, cooked eggs, cooked meats, and then those denatured proteins from the cooked animal sources lead to the inflammation and the aging process, and then we're stuck back in the rut. So if you're interested in high quality life, this is something to incorporate into your diet. Hopefully you can make it work. If you have any questions, feel free to call, and I'll teach you what I know. Thanks for your attention.